This is Kayla. Say hi, Kayla. Kayla is in Year 7 and more physically mature than her peers. Tell us about yourself, Kayla.
Hey, I'm Kayla and I love sport and art. I used to enjoy maths and science, but I'm finding it a bit hard to remember what I'm learning. I don't go to science classes anymore. I don't like the teacher and I can't really relate to what's being taught. Other students talk about me behind my back, but I just avoid them.
We tried to connect with Kayla.
But she doesn't want to talk about anything that's upsetting her, you know?
Yeah, she's gone weird and stuff and she keeps to herself.
That's why I've started hanging out with the kids that are older than me. They just seem to get what I'm going through. They get a bad rap, but I think they're alright.
However, it's not only her friends that have noticed differences in Kayla's behaviour.
Kayla hasn't been attending my classes regularly anymore. At the start of the year, her attendance record was near perfect, but now she only shows up 2 or 3 times a week. And it's a little bit concerning because from what I understand, she has a very supportive home life. But her parents did immigrate to this country and their language skills are limited. I'm more concerned about the older kids that she's hanging around with. These older teens have been known to associate with drugs and quite frankly, I'm concerned that she herself is at risk.
There are several factors at play that are influencing the way Kayla is growing, thinking and acting. These can be deconstructed using the biopsychosocial model of causation. Together, we will deconstruct Kayla using this model. Then we will consider strategies to help Kayla with her studies. Kayla, I hope you don't mind.
No worries. Just remember guys, not everyone is as amazing as I am.
Kayla is in Year 7. This means that she's around 12 to 13 years old. Since she's physically more mature than her peers, it is clear that she's in the early stages of puberty. Puberty begins with hormonal changes in the brain and body, as well as changes in physical functioning of the body and the development of sex characteristics. Kayla's early maturation may have to do with a few things.
I'm guessing it may have something to do with where I live and how lucky I am.
That's right. Living in a developed nation where you have access to nutritious food, widely available medicine, and accessible healthcare are all factors that play a role in helping you develop faster. Early maturation has been linked to several factors in maturing ladies, such as attention from and association with older peers of the opposite sex, depression, increased likelihood of substance abuse, delinquency, aggressive behavior, school problems, and early sexual activity. Kayla is currently experiencing many of these things.
Yeah, I guess so.
Have you ever wondered why you're better than classmates at sport?
No, not really, but I'm sure you're gonna let me know.
It's due to your pubertal development. During the middle stages of adolescence, you're at the peak of physical functioning. You've just got a head start on the others in your class. During puberty, your brain is still under construction.
You mean it's still growing? I didn't think I could be any greater than I already am.
That's right, Kayla. These changes in your brain cause you to act differently from adults. These biological changes progress in conjunction with your cognitive and social development. Let's move on to how your brain is developing.
Kayla, as I mentioned before, your brain is still under construction. At your age, your brain is going through one of the most active stages of brain development in your life. The areas of your brain that are most affected are those that deal with how you behave, your emotions, and how you interpret consequences of sensation seeking.
But that has nothing to do with puberty, right?
It has everything to do with puberty. There's been no proven correlation between age and sensation seeking. The correlation lies between pubertal development and sensation seeking.
What do you mean by sensation seeking?
Sensation seeking relates to partying, drug use, and a variety of other issues. Do you realize the risks involved with doing drugs, partying, and hanging out with those older kids?
Of course, I'm not an idiot.
I know, and we know that you're not too. It's just that during the stage of development that you're in, you're unable to break down the risks and consequences of those actions rationally. Being able to critically deconstruct your actions comes later in your adolescent development. According to Piaget, it'd be in your formal operational stage of development, around the ages of 16 to 25.
But why don't I like my friends as much as I used to?
Piaget also stated that at your age, you'd want to find an environment that suits the level of maturity that you see yourself in. This is one of the reasons that you don't want to hang out with your mates the same age as you. You just don't find them stimulating enough. If you put all 3 of these factors together, we can understand why you're hanging out with the older crowd that have known to be involved with drugs.
I never knew they were into drugs. I just hung around them because I guess they understood me a little better. Why am I finding it hard to understand maths and science then?
There could be a few reasons behind that too. Instead of focusing on you first, I might focus on other factors. How about we focus on your teachers, just to prove that they're not perfect?
Okay then.
The reason why you're not picking up as much information could be due to your teachers overloading your memory with too much information, or the fact that the information hasn't been taught to you using the correct processes. What we know about long-term memory is that the majority of what is stored there is remembered by watching what people do, what they write, and what they say. What you learn from your teachers is added onto things that you already know, similar to how Lego is built on top of other Lego to create things. These individual things that you know, I call it schema. Your memory is made up of multiple schemata.
So I have schemata for math and science?
Yep. So if you're missing prior knowledge of what's being taught in these classes, you don't have the schemata available to deconstruct the information that's being presented to you. That's why new information is hard to understand, unless it's reinforced regularly until it's committed to your long-term memory.
You said something about teachers overloading me with information.
That feeling of overloading is due to the task having a high cognitive load, but teachers should try to be reducing the load placed on you when they're attempting to teach you new things. This will help you commit things to long-term memory quicker and more efficiently. The most efficient way to remember things quicker is by designing a task that incorporates other activities that you have previously learned. This is called high element interactivity.
Okay, so it's my teacher's fault I can't learn things then.
Like I said earlier, it's a combination of how you learn and how your teachers teach. For example, you have a limited attention span.
Hey, I'm a good listener. My teachers tell my mom that I'm very good at paying attention.
But there's a limit to how much you can pay attention to things. It's not just you, it happens to everyone. I probably said that a little wrong. People have a limited processing capability. This is just a fancy way of saying people have a limited attention span. People have the ability to only hold up to 7 to 9 pieces of information in their visual short-term or working memories, and what they remember disappears quickly. If you listen to someone speaking, you hold about 5 to 7 pieces of information for up to 4 seconds in your working memory. However, if you combine both ways of learning, you'll retain more information.
Well, what about my childhood? Does that play any role into this?
There's been research completed on low socioeconomic status children and how their upbringing affects their developing brain.
What do you mean by low socioeconomic?
Mum and Dad don't make as much money as the other families. It affects how you grow up too. Don't be too upset, because the study was primarily focused on younger children. The results indicated that it may have affected how they develop language and the size of their vocabulary. Stresses in your home life would have attributed it to the size of your pharyngeal anterior cortex.
What is that?
It's the area of your brain that deals with goal-directed actions. This means that you may find it more difficult than other students to focus on specific tasks, to ignore distracting stimuli, and you may have possible deficits with your working memory, inhibition, and planning.
Well, is there anything to help me through this?
Of course! But first we need to go through your social aspects of the situation. Then everyone can get the full scope of what's going on before we suggest ways to help you out.
Like we've mentioned before, since you've developed earlier than your peers, you've become aloof and alienated yourself from them. This has resulted in you feeling a sense of exclusion and being rejected by the rest of your cohort.
Alright, no need to remind me. That's why I hang with the older guys, remember?
Exactly. You seek acceptance from this older crowd. Unfortunately, this older crowd has been involved with drugs. And as you associate with this group, it puts you at a much higher risk of being involved with drugs yourself.
That doesn't explain why.
I'm getting to that. You're at the stage of adolescence where a key crisis is unfolding in your life.
What do you mean by crisis? Like an emergency?
Oh yes, in a way. You're developing in a new environment. You've moved from primary school to high school, and there's a large difference between the two. You're no longer in the same pond, so to speak, and you've grown out of it, and your identity is changing and conflicts with your old one from primary school. This is the crisis.
What does this mean for me?
Well, there's a correlation between your shifting identity and depression, anxiety, and self-harm, all of which will affect your studies and who you are as a person.
Is this a bad thing? It sounds bad.
It's a completely normal thing for someone of your age. As an adolescent, you learn your social habits and various other bits of information from your social setting. Your transition from primary to secondary school, your early physical development, and your inability to effectively communicate problems with peers, teachers, and parents increases your feelings of exclusion and isolation. You're seeking acceptance from these older kids at school because you can identify with them at some level. And as a result, your social habits learned from this group inform what you believe in.
So what do you suggest to help me out?
I'm glad you asked. The first step in seeking help is realizing that you have a problem in the first place, and then building up the confidence to ask for help. Let's move on.
From here on, I'll pass it on to the 3 experts that I've found that have studied adolescent development. They'll be able to suggest strategies to assist you.
Hi guys. What do you three suggest?
Through our research, we have found that a recommended course of action would be that you enroll yourself in a peer support program.
Why would I do that?
These programs offer an inclusive environment where you can discuss a wide number of issues with other peers who might be going through similar issues yourself.
In these support programs, we've found that adolescents, like yourself, develop empathy, communication skills, emotional communication skills, and problem-solving skills while providing support in a comfortable setting. These relationships that you'll develop will offer a way to build on existing relationships as well as develop new ones.
These programs involve social emotional learning, SEL for short, and are essential to providing balance in education between academics and the community, as well as providing adolescents, such as yourself, with the knowledge necessary to be active, productive, and well-regarded members of the community.
So is there anything more you'd like to add?
Of course, we'd recommend a peer support program that is organised by teachers and facilitated by the school counsellor.
This support program would focus on guidance rather than advice. The program would guide students about issues related to drug use, physical and mental development, as well as bullying. This way, you will touch on a variety of issues which will not single out a particular student.
We also suggest that parents and guardians are involved in the program as well, as it would allow an open dialogue between you.
Developing your knowledge in these issues will be critical for your healthy development and improve your school experience. The program will also have the added benefit of addressing character development.
Well, that's great. But is there anything that my teachers can do to help me too?
Definitely. We recommend that the teachers that you have for your subjects that you're struggling with provide you with additional tuition outside of class time. That way they can go through the information at a more comfortable pace.
Getting your parents involved will also have a positive effect on your adjustment into high school.
We also suggest that you continue to pursue the likes of sport and art outside of school. If you're good at them and you enjoy them, that's fantastic. It will introduce you to more kids your age and will help you develop more relationships with adolescents outside of your school.
Well, thanks everyone for your time. Showing me that you all care about me and what I'm doing makes me feel a little better inside. So cheers.
Good luck!
Hi, my name is Noel. I believe that teachers must endeavour to facilitate the learning of their students, manage and remove obstacles to their learning, and ensure students' well-being. Teachers must be able to identify development issues and potential problems to students' learning. By using the biopsychosocial approach to identify these problems, I can ensure I am aware of developmental issues facing adolescents in my classroom. I can be mindful of the biological changes taking effect in students and be privy to the psychological and social issues associated with puberty and adolescence.
Hi, my name is Luke Kains. During my practical experience, I was privileged enough to have a mentor who incorporated many of the developmental aspects we have discussed throughout the semester. Their practice incorporated knowledge of Vygotsky's theories of proximal development, social learning, and scaffolding. My mentor understood the cognitive, biological, and social development of the adolescents in the class, and appropriated what was being taught for the specific needs of students in that class. What I've learned most from this course, and from my classroom observations, is that many of the issues students face can be disseminated through an open dialogue with students that are causing learning disruption. Many of the teachers that have taught me, and the ones that I observed, failed to build a relationship with their students. This, in turn, negatively affected their teaching practice. Building an open and professional relationship with students will assist them in respecting you and what you're trying to teach them. As our character Kayla stated in our video, I'm not an idiot. This is a crucial factor of understanding adolescent cognition and how they develop. I believe many teachers forget to recall this from their own education, as it is integral to understanding how they think. Adolescents are highly intelligent. They may be young, but their minds are developing at an alarming rate. As a teacher, we should value what our students say and try to deconstruct what they are saying, rather than place them within a discourse of deficit. To do so, in the teaching area of English, one would commence the lesson by refreshing students on what was discussed in the previous lesson, an instance of scaffolding. I would then have students discuss amongst themselves for 5 minutes, then have them report back to the class. This is social learning and group work, so I can map out what they remember on the whiteboard. As we've learned this semester, students retain knowledge easier when given the opportunity to engage in group work and social learning. This also includes high element interactivity and reduces unnecessary cognitive loading. When writing about what students have learned on the whiteboard, I will also be including visual stimuli as well as oral stimuli into my presentation. Another technique that aids students to retain a greater wealth of knowledge. These techniques can also be used to engage students in critical thinking activities that are typical in the English KLA. Knowing about the cognition of students, as well as their biological and social factors, will help to deconstruct how my students may feel and how I can alleviate any stresses when exploring the course content with them. What I can improve on is my understanding of adolescence and school cultures. What was explored in the unit textbook and course content was very USA-centric. Prior to entering the classroom environment, I feel it would be beneficial to research more on the Australian school culture and how adolescents react within it. This will benefit me, as I'll be able to understand factors that are overlooked within the textbook. This in turn will assist me in becoming the best educator.
My name is Luke Weatherby. A teacher's ability to provide an effective and inclusive education is heavily impacted by their understanding of how their students think. Learning the processes of adolescent cognitive, biological and social development grants teachers a certain amount of insight. Cognitive development directly impacts the type of lesson a teacher would present, as a student's cognitive development greatly impacts their ability to memorize and recall information, as well as whether or not they have an aptitude for abstract thinking. Knowing a student's state of development gives teachers more options for their lesson and allows them to better tailor their lessons to students. Teachers with an understanding of how biological and social development can impact on students are far more effective at dealing with common adolescent issues. These issues include friends' influence and peer pressure, identity issues, conformity and alienation, and the general nature of relationships forged in this stage of life. All these factors can be positive or negative to a student's learning experience, and it often falls to teachers to recognise and address these issues to foster a healthy development pathway for their students. The goal of a teacher should always be to provide a healthy, inclusive and efficient learning environment. And to that end, it is within our best interest to understand adolescent development. The goal of a teacher should always be to provide a healthy, inclusive and efficient learning environment. And to that end, it is imperative that we understand adolescent development. In the English Kayla, for example, understanding a student's aptitude for abstract thinking will dictate the flow of a lesson. It makes no sense to guide a student through abstract thinking and abstract concepts if they are unable to even comprehend it. An example of this would be a student in the concrete state of operations, as opposed to the formal state of operations. The English KLA often discusses abstract notions in units of work such as belonging or conflict. And as a teacher, my own understanding of adolescent cognitive functions and adolescent biological and social development is critical to my success in the classroom.